Hi, my name's Rob Scott from UC Today, bringing you the latest news and conversation from the unified communications and collaboration space. So today, I'm joined by Michael Peachey from RingCentral and Zeus Kerravala from ZK Research. And we're going to be discussing the value of a connected culture. So welcome, everybody.
Hey, Rob. How are you?
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Great to be here. It's good. It's a good topic.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? And good to have you on. It is a really topical session today, so hold on tight. But just beforehand, how about we just do a quick round of introductions? Michael, would you like to tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, please?
Sure, of course. And thanks for having us. My name is Michael Peachey. I run our global user and experience design team here at RingCentral, where we design and build and market products that help people stay connected, employees to employees, companies to their customers, trying to help us all through this.
Thanks, Michael, and a warm welcome. And Zeus.
Yeah, so I'm Zeus Kerravala, as you mentioned, principal analyst with ZK Research, my own research firm. I've been doing this about 10 years with my own firm. Before that, I was actually the chief research officer at Yankee Group. And I cover emerging technology in the area of communications, collaboration, and networking. This is, the great thing about the communication space. It seems like it's been emerging for the better part of a couple of decades. So there's lots of good stuff going on.
There is, isn't there?
Yeah.
So today, we said we'd talk about RingCentral's latest research, and it's called "Is Remote Work Sustainable?" So to kick things off, first of all, over to you, Michael, as it's your research. How is remote work impacting employee productivity and well-being? And, what are the challenges highlighted by the report?
Certainly. So while we're talking now, it's spring of 2021, just about exactly a year ago, at least out here in the Bay Area, we all got sent home from work one day, and we had to adapt to this remote environment. So things have changed a lot over the course of the last year, which obviously makes a lot of sense. In the beginning, there was a lot of concern about lost productivity. A lot of managers, a lot of people, a lot of organizations weren't comfortable with people being remote, but had no choice. I would say that what we learned over the course of the year was that it is in fact sustainable. We ironically saw productivity increases with a lot of the organizations that we spoke to, and net, I think what we've learned is that stress in the workplace when people are remote is a bigger problem than people just walking around in their pajamas and not doing work all day long.
Yeah, I don't know if it is sustainable. Technically we could do it, and we've done it for the better part of a year. In fact, you've seen companies like yourself go through do really hard things like your quarterly financials, like M&A and things like that remotely. What I get the sense from people is they're starting to thirst for human contact. And I think people love working remotely when it's on their terms. I think being forced to work from remotely all the time is something that I think wears on people somewhat. So I think it's sustainable in the fact that we could do it if we had to. I think when the option's there, I think the people's preference will be, though, to go back to the office.
Yeah, I think that's true for many people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've not seen so many reports have all said, everyone's being lazy and working from home and not, they're not doing anything and they're all unhappy. It seems that the majority of the reports and pieces I've read are extremely positive and talking about productivity being a real highlight. So it's interesting. So according to the report, Michael, employees working for companies that foster a connected culture are twice as likely to be productive when working from anywhere. So how does a company achieve a connected culture?
And we saw a couple of things that are, indicators or harbingers of that connected culture. So, just for people who haven't read the report, and you can go get it on the RingCentral website, and I believe it'll probably be in the notes of the podcast as well. What we saw was there's kind of a haves and have-nots in this remote space. So going back to what Zeus was saying, a lot of this is not sustainable. And some orgs fall on one side or the other of that divide. So organizations that have done a good job at providing the tools and the technologies to their remote workers that allow them to be connected and productive so they can actually do their job. But again, to Zeus's point, if they're feeling socially isolated, if they're feeling disconnected from the organization and the people, even if they're working hard all day long, their productivity may not be as high because they're just not whole and healthy.
Yeah, actually, you bring up a good point. When I was actually still at Yankee Group, I had written a report on disconnected employees and how they were the silent killer of organizations. Now, it's easier to stay engaged today and connected because we have video. I think that's been a big driver of allowing us to maintain some sort of social proximity, even though we may be physically separate. But and it's not, every company has that group of people that are always actively engaged. They're A-type people. It doesn't really matter, right? I know a few people in your organization, Michael, that are like that. And then you've got a bunch of people that are actively disengaged. They're always dissing the company. They can't stand it there. Then you got a big group of people in the middle that are sort of unwillingly disengaged, right? They get on video calls. Maybe the quality's not that good. They're back, the lighting's poor, something like that. And they don't mean to be disengaged, but they have a hard time engaging. And here's where it's incumbent upon the organization, meeting leaders, people like that, to make sure that, they're calling people up. They make sure they're engaged and things like that. So I think it's a good lesson for anyone watching this to be able to understand the different types of employees that you have, because it's those people that are sort of unwillingly disengaged that will eventually drive productivity down because they just don't feel like a part of the company. Luckily, we have good technology that, if used properly, can mitigate against that. But obviously, as with all things technology, it doesn't always get used correctly.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
Michael, your report talks about like blind spots. I mean, can you just talk us through what these blind spots might look like and how organizations might identify these potential blind spots?
Sure. So I'll answer that in two different ways. One, going to Zeus's point about the people in the organization who are disconnected, and I think that can be a blind spot for a lot of organizations. Is we talk with customers and team leaders with our group, our customers. One of the things that's come up is this idea of paging to the back screen in the meeting. You know how you're sitting there and you got a bunch of faces on screen 1 and there's screen 2 and screen 3. And I'll tell team leaders, go click through onto that last page, because most software will bubble up the most active people to the main screen. So you may have a blind spot of being engaged with that group of people, and then 2 screens back, there's the rest of your team with their cameras off, they're quiet, they're not even sitting at their desks. So check in with the team, ask them questions, just be sure to be there for them. The other, at the organizational level, is to look outside your organization. You know everything you know within your own walls. But are there other organizations out there, particularly your competitors or comparative organizations, that are doing better than you are? Because you don't want to just be the best that you can. You want to be the best that you can be out there at all.
Yeah, I think the people that aren't engaged, it is important to focus on those people. And again, here's where people that are meeting leaders and the analytic tools that RingCentral provides, things like that, can be used to understand who's contributing, who's not, who's participating. Even simple things like, how often it's pretty rare today that you can do a meeting like this over Ring or something and people aren't on video, but then you do wind up sometimes with people that, still don't really like it. And, that's where a company needs to mandate, put your camera on, right? And as a meeting, if you notice, if you were to see somebody in a physical meeting, sitting with their head down on their phone, you might call them out. Feel free to do that, in a virtual meeting as well. So I think it is, that the tools are there, but the tools are only going to go so far. And here's where there needs to be some discipline of understanding how to manage meetings, to make sure everybody is engaged.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It seems that there needs to be some key principles to having a meeting nowadays, doesn't there? Especially in the virtual world. And
yeah,
Michael, your research talked about remote champions and having someone in the business, and apparently that's 1 in 10 potentially. Could be the right profile for a remote champion. What is that right? Do you see that as an effective way to kind of increase that adoption?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in our research, we discovered that there were connected cultures, and the employees in those cultures were self-reporting dramatically higher productivity and satisfaction than in those organizations which weren't connected in that way. So we wanted to understand, well, what made an organization connected? And it turned out to be tools and things like that. It also turned out that in a lot of these organizations, there were individuals who had decided themselves to be the champions of the connected culture. They were the ones that were getting into the meetings first and saying hi to everybody on their way in. They were the ones that took the time to put together a happy hour with their team. Even it was just their peers, because you talked about there's some people that kind of naturally gravitate to this stuff. They drove that social connection, the virtual walks, the things that organizations do with their teams just to connect people. And what we saw is those connected champions and the managers who celebrated and supported those connected champions, their teams had higher productivity and higher satisfaction. So, going back to your first question about productivity, the fear was drop in productivity because people would do more home and less work when they were at home. It turned out that when you were home, work became home and you did more work and less home. The stress was where people started losing in that productivity. So great managers and these connected champions worked on kind of that whole authentic person to bring everybody into the meeting and get everybody involved there, which made them healthier, which ironically made them more productive, even if they're doing a little less work.
Yeah, well, and I think people find the time to do the work, right? And I think here's where organizations need to understand the different type of workers, the different policies, because I do get the sense people are getting burnout. I talked to one organization where the CEO was on a call with an employee, and he heard a child crying in the background, right? And the employee said, "Well, she needed to attend to her child," and the CEO said, "Go attend to your child, right? It's okay if you want to block off like certain times during the day to help with remote education and things like that, right? You don't have to be available all the time." And I think when we went into this remote work style, people kind of felt that way, that they were the commuting time you use. That was a time when you would sort of mentally get yourself ready for work, and when you commuted home, you would get yourself mentally out of work. But that was gone, and so you were always on, and I think that's unhealthy. And but I think you can have fun with these tools. I talked to one company where they have virtual background theme days. For a week, put up a virtual background of your favorite vacation spot. People will go on, they'll talk about that. Put your favorite sports team up. That creates rivalries, things like that. So there are ways to make virtual working fun. It doesn't have to be just, a video call after video call. We can use these things for other purposes. And I think it's incumbent on people, the business leaders, to understand that we're still people. We need to do something other than work. And I do think we forgot that for a little while. And I understand why. It was, everybody rallied up in order to get the company, moving forward in this time. But we can back off that pedal a little bit, I think.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I was just about to say, it's almost like, we've just had our foot on the gas too hard, and we just need to take it off a little bit now and recalibrate. So that kind of leads me on to my next question about the future, really. I mean, we're hearing lots about hybrid work. We're still hearing lots of stories about screen fatigue or video fatigue and things like that. So, what's the future look like? And when I say future, I'm probably thinking the next, 6 to 9 months. How's 2021 going to play out, do you think? Michael,
Sure.
do you want to say one first?
So I think the first thing is that we're not going back to December 2019. There is no going back to the way it was. We're going to go forward into something else. The bell is rung on this. The horse is out of the barn. Whatever metaphor you want to use. We did this big work from home experiment, and that doesn't come all the way back. There's going to be this hybrid environment where some people are going back into the office for one reason or another, and some people are staying home. And in that hybrid environment is going to be, from what we see, actually a much bigger problem than the work from home, the work from anywhere. Because work from anywhere leveled the playing field. Everyone in an organization, a lot of organizations already had remote work, but within organizations that could do remote work, everybody went home and they had the same challenges. They had the same kids in distance learning. They had the same parents they had to take care of. They had the same habits they had to build about how to replace your commute time and the rest. And everybody figured it out. But it was kind of like that wartime effort, like we're all in this together. In the hybrid world, people are going to start going back into the office and people are going to start to stay home. And those groups are going to probably split on very traditional boundaries. So you're going to find the people who are in the metro areas that are largely single, more aggressive, typically more male, are going to be going back into the offices, and people who are responsible for caregiving that are more remote are going to be staying home. That's probably going to break. It's going to break on gender boundaries. It's going to break on income boundaries. It's going to break on traditional race boundaries as well. The challenge for organizations is going to be, how do I get 100% out of my people that are on site and 100% out of my people that are not on site? Because if I got 5 people in the office that are standing in a room at a whiteboard with their backs to the camera and the speakerphone in the conference room, and 5 people remote trying to collaborate with them, I'm not getting 10 full people. So what are the tools and the technologies, and how do we integrate the 3 main things that people use to communicate, right? Voice, video, screen share, meetings like the podcast that we're on now, and written form, store and forward, email, text messages, SMS, team messaging applications. Can we design those products? This is my big worry, so that everybody is part of that conversation. So we've got this thing at RingCentral in our design team, like, what does a collaboration product look like that's so good that you would bring it into your real world meeting to be part of that meeting with you? And I'll give you one good example on that. What if, when you were sitting in a conference room and there's 5 or 6 of you all there in real time working together, and you're having a great conversation, there's 100 really good ideas, and then someone says, "Hey, did anyone write that down?" And you didn't. What if your meeting product was there with you and your meeting product said, "Yeah, I got all that, and I'm going to post it out to the team messaging group for you so you guys can all follow up on it"? That plus the remote work is the vision that I'm hoping that we get to in the next 3 months, 6.
Yeah, I actually think we have an interesting challenge ahead where, Michael, Ring and the companies like you have put so much innovation into improving virtual meetings that I'm concerned that the in-person meetings aren't going to be very good. And I find myself using these tools. I actually went down and visited a startup in the Valley, yes, an in-person meeting, and I turned on one of these meeting tools and I turned on the transcription engine because I find the ability to talk to somebody and not have to worry about taking notes, knowing the transcription engine is going to capture everything, is invaluable to me. So that's just one example of, if I'm in a meeting, even if it's a physical meeting with nobody remote, I still may use these tools. And so I do have in the back of my head, I'm a little concerned that we've improved the virtual meeting experience so much that now being virtual actually might be better than being in person, right? And even if you look at things, there's things, like even with physical whiteboards, there's a way to capture information off of those now, things like that. So the technology has gotten really good. The key, though, is, you're right, is creating is democratizing all the technology so I can use it in office, out of office. We need to think sort of inclusively, low bandwidth mobile devices, right? There's a lot of people working from home that maybe just have nothing more than a Chromebook and an Android phone or something, right? And that's not the same experience as you're going to get over a MacBook Pro or something like that. So these features can't be so tightly tied to high-end devices that it makes it unusable for most of the people. And so I think this is where the concept of making sure that everybody's included, and all the different types of workers are included. And we ran into that with remote education this year, right? Students that had poor bandwidth really weren't getting the same type of education as kids that live in Stanford or something like that, right? So I am a little concerned about that as we move forward, is that we create a lot of inequity, and people that are wealthier and have higher socioeconomic status actually are able to be more productive, because that's simply not fair, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Connecting is about connecting everybody. It's about inclusivity.
In fact, I noticed in your report that this really hasn't all this remote working and kind of equalization of everybody hasn't really brought an equalization for women. Women still in the workplace still carry a lot of your report pointed out a lot of the burden of home and things like that. So it's not really even with that aspect, it hasn't really created the fairness that we were hoping for, I think.
And I think that's something that we've all got our responsibility to watch out for as we move back into that hybrid workforce, to make sure that it doesn't turn into 2 cohorts of people with different sets of privileges and ability to contribute. Yeah. And those organizations that get the tools right, that get the cultures right, are going to thrive versus their peers. And I believe in the long run, the ones that are successful will be copied by the new entrants in the market, and we'll be able to lift everybody up. And, Rob, these kinds of conversations are a great tool in that, and I'm very grateful to you for your time.
And that's a great place to finish today's session. Hey, Michael, what's the best way to find out more on this subject?
Sure. So RingCentral.com has got links to all of our products and information, including GLIP, which is our free unlimited video and messaging product. The Connected Culture Report is also there on the website, but really encourage your listeners, if you don't have a good video and messaging product, try the free one. Not just because I want people to use the RingCentral app, but the more people using the products, the more information I've got on how people use these that we can bring back in and promote best practices for everybody. So thank you.
Yeah, and I will say that GLIP's built on the WebRTC standard, and that's been, as are a lot of other tools, and that's been a great equalizer where you get the same type of features over a browser now, and so you don't have to have a lot of horsepower on the local machine. And I think that's a key. You can use Chromebooks, mobile devices, things like that, and it works. The experience is the same.
It helps with the democratization. Yeah.
Hey, Michael, Zeus, it's been great speaking to you today. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with me.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for having us.
And that's it from us. If you've enjoyed today's session, please subscribe to UC Today News and give this video a quick share on social, as it's always appreciated. And if you're a UC fan and want to be part of the conversation, you can join us using the UC News hashtag on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. And our social links are in the description. So I'm Rob Scott from UC Today. Thanks for watching.